Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Quick video, Palantir, Tesla, Nvidia, the three major stocks that the market pays a lot of attention to. So let's look at it. First of all, let's look at Palantir. I got the monthly chart here pulled up. The more I look at this, the more they look similar. It's just kind of ridiculous in terms of what they're doing right now. But I got the current Palantir bull market here pulled up, and in comparison to the Bitcoin bull market from 2015 all the way to 2017, I really started making this comparison really ever since like June or July of 2024. And so far it's actually been playing out quite remarkably so. First of all, the fit levels seem to line up relatively well in terms of the explosion. And right now, just like over here where we got rejected at 1.414 on this Bitcoin bull market, and it came back and back tested 1.272, as well as back test the blue line of Tenkan right here. We're basically doing very similar thing. We got rejected at 1.414, went a little bit too far, too fast there. Come back down, so far holding this 1.272 here, and that's where I got really close to the Tenkan over here. So I do wonder whether or not we, over the next couple of weeks, might end up having a little bit of recovery here, and this candle might actually be potentially green. I just wonder whether or not we're at a very, very similar junction over here as we were over here. Price is still about the monthly Tenkan and about the monthly Kijin. So it's still, as far as I'm concerned, a bull trend. This is still a cool off that is much necessary after a big, giant, explosive move that it just had, just like it did over here, right? To cool off for a few months is not anything too surprising here. But it just looks remarkably similar. And I also want to look at the Bollinger Band here too, which I also find it to be extremely similar between the two. Because right now we continue to have the Bollinger Band expansion here of Palantir all the way to the downside, right? And you can see that the Bitcoin bull market, even as it was cooling off, you can have these kind of Bollinger Band expansion. You do have a little bit of a deceleration over here, but we might be like right around here, right? So currently, I guess there would be anywhere from like August to September 2017, which would put us in maybe somewhere around here, right? So I just think there's a lot of similarities between these. Now, granted, fractal don't always have to work out the same. I'm just amazed in terms of how well this has played out so far. Is it always going to play out the same way? Does it have to go to 2.272 at like $593.88 within a year? I think that's a little bit insane. I don't know that. But again, I think the entire move over here from the 20s all the way up to like 120 was also pretty insane too. So I cannot say that it's going to happen one way or another. All I'm saying is I'm just showing you what I'm seeing. Right? Make your own decision. Looking at the weekly chart of Palantir by itself, you can see why we bounce off this very, very important area. First of all, if you are to put up the Gann chart here, I'm going to draw this here with that all-time low as a pivot. I'm going to do 360 as the duration on the weekly chart. I'm going to do 1 as the ratio, and I'm going to zoom in here. You can see that currently is holding that angle extremely well. There's a confluent zone of support. One is the angle, right? The other one is the 1.272, and on top of that, you have the blue line support band right there, and on top of that, you add the Ichimoku Kijin over here on the weekly. You can see such a strong support zone. No wonder you have all these wicks down here below. It looks like you got a pretty decent demand zone down here. It doesn't mean that it has to make an A, B, C. I don't necessarily think that that's going to have to be the case here. Do I think that we're hitting some potential resistance soon? The answer is yes, because if you look at the daily chart, you look at the Bollinger Band here, you can see the 20-day moving average is very negatively sloping. Usually when you have very, very negative sloping resistance coming from up above, it might have a hard time breaking through. Okay. Generally, I like to see it at least turning flat before putting through. So there's a potential for it to kind of hover around here, get rejected, come back down here a little bit more before going up higher. I think that's entirely possible, and that's going to end up shaking a lot more people out as well. And if you basically just kind of look at a morphology, I'm going to do like a 4-hour chart here. if you just simply look at the morphology, it does look like we're trying to do a little bit of reversal pattern. So this is like a little bit maybe like inverted head and shoulder kind of pattern, right? This is the shoulder, this is head. I'm not surprised it forms another shoulder here before further bullish continuation. That would not surprise me at all. And we are at, you know, some daily resistance here to kind of pay attention to. So that's the one thing. The other thing too is that if you look at the monthly chart, I think we just simply have a hard time going too far too fast, because as you can see, whenever you have things that are just way outside the upper Bollinger Band, you get punished for it, right? This is the punishment right here. But the upper Bollinger Band continues to go upwards, right? As you can see, whenever things get a little bit too far away from the Tenkan, you get punished for it, right? But you can see that we come back to closer to Tenkan, and I think that's good enough. It looks like we want to have some further bullish continuation here on the monthly chart. Regardless, this is still a bull trend. Regardless, I don't see any warning sign for any major exhaustion, because if you also look at the RSI, it's overbought, but there's not any like bearish diversions or anything like that. Here, initially on the weekly, it did have some bearish diversions here, with price going up from 76 all the way to 122, and RSI has been going down, right? You see this bearish divergence here, but that has already worked out. Now you have a lot of these kind of hidden bullish diversions that's been building up. I think that's also part of the reason why the price is actually holding pretty decent at the zone over here. It's just a huge confluent zone, and momentum may be shifting to its favor, right? Even if you look at the wave trend oscillator, if you look at the daily, it's already flipped positive here, right? It's already flipped positive here. So I think that it's going to be fine given time. Do I imagine all of a sudden immediately it has to go up back to like the triple digits? Not necessarily, because the 20-day moving average might serve as some pretty decent resistance there. So that's what I think about Palantir. Now Tesla is an extremely brutal correction here that you can see. You can see 3 waves all the way down. The last wave is extremely parabolically down. And this has basically turned sentiment away from Tesla. But the reality is that it is still at the low Bollinger Band. And last week we had a hammer bottom type candle here. So it's favoring that we are at a bottom. If you look at the monthly chart, the Ichimoku cloud has finally been challenged. We broke through the monthly, came back down, and backtest the monthly. I didn't think it would have to, because it doesn't always have to do that. Here during this bull market here for Tesla, it did not, right? It's just kind of stopped short right there at the horizontal support zone right there, breakout, backtest, and it went a lot higher. Here we do have a horizontal support zone, maybe right around 250, 270. It broke down underneath of that. This is an extremely brutal kind of correction, which is kind of insane to think about. Now, with that said, I do think that this is a very decent support level. Now, I could be very wrong. Tesla could fall down through the cloud and go down a lot further, right? But I just think that this spot right here at the cloud backtest, I just do think that this cloud right here, the cloud backtest, is very similar to what we had last cycle before it mooned, right? So I just can't help but to wonder whether or not we're experiencing a fractal here, with the exception that we push through this diagonal line and we backtest it 2 or 3 years later, but this time we push through here and we backtest it within half a year, because it wants to go up in a hurry and it wanted to come back and grab liquidity before doing so, right? I can't help but to wonder whether or not that's the case. Usually that's how they do you. On top of that, we are broken down underneath the 20-month moving average, which is not great. I would love to see the month closing about 250. If they were to close about 250, then the whole thing is just basically pushed through to the upper Bollinger Band a little bit too far, too fast, come back down, backtest to 20, through form a higher low before further bullish continuation, right? I would really like to see that to be the case. But currently, we still have another 2 weeks of trading, and it just wants to kind of hover down here, then so be it. But again, it's also holding the top of the Ichimoku cloud over here so far, so I can't really complain all that much. With that said, I still think Tesla is going to do incredibly well. Let's say, for example, this fractal works out, then we're at a very, very, very favorable spot over here, right? Maybe this is the Tesla 3 steps that we're talking about. Step number 1, 2, and 3. Step number 1, 2, and then 3, right? Maybe this is the Tesla 3 steps, right? And once you've gone through 3 steps here, maybe we get to continue to dance a lot higher, right? How much higher does the cycle go? Nobody really knows. Is this really a beginning of a cycle over here? To me, because of how brutal this backtest has been, I think it might be the case. Just because of how brutal it is and how bad the sentiment is, and generally they want to do this to you at the beginning of a super bullish bull market, because they want sentiment to be reset, and this move right here completely reset the sentiment. I can't guarantee you that Tesla is going to do very well moving forward. I can only tell you that based on risk reward, I like where the price is at right now. I liked it when it was around 300. I liked it when it was around 250. And I liked it even more as around 220. So I've been buying on the way down here. And right now it's kind of hovering around here. My cost average is just slightly over 200. So I don't really feel that strongly about needing to like just buy. I want to buy other things at this point. But it just seems like a pretty decent risk reward ratio here. I can't tell you anything else, right? Because this is not financial advice. I'm just showing you what I'm seeing. I can't tell you anything else. Nvidia. What do I think about Nvidia? I think Nvidia is holding okay. I actually am starting to kind of turn around Nvidia here. I don't think that a bear market has necessarily come. I don't think this is necessarily like an exit liquidity. I have another theory. There are three theories here. I'm just going to say there are three theories here. Theory number 1. This over here with the Gann art, and this is the monthly chart for Nvidia. This over here in the Gann art, resistance broke through, rejected the 2.272, came back tested the arc. So far as holding a support, right? Very nice hammer looking thing. So far as holding a support, where's that going to go next, right? Well, what happened last cycle when it broke through the arc, back test the arc, went to the next level, which is the horizontal level over here. If it ends up going to a horizontal level and use everybody as exit liquidity before bear market comes, you go all the way up to 355, right? If it doesn't do that, if it just kind of do a little bit of like a lame duck exit strategy kind of thing, it could revisit a 2.272 and then that'll be it, and the next thing you know, just plummet from there. Or it can hit the 2.618 over here, and that would be the end of the bull market, and you just end up having a big correction, maybe back down to arc to like the double digits, right? The reason why I think that this is the possibility this is a late cycle is because of Bollinger Band. It's because at the beginning of bull cycle here in Nvidia, and also many other stocks as well, Bollinger Band expands during that parabolic bull phase on the upside, right? Here, expansion, right? Here, expansion, self-explanatory. Whenever you have the trend getting a little bit more tired, you have the Bollinger Band contraction, right? Contraction here, because you have a loss of volatility, because it's just not as moving up as impulsively anymore. So you're having a little bit of a contraction here toward late cycle. Whenever you have the contraction here, price would just come back down, get closer to the low Bollinger Band, corrects, and then renews, right? Here, same thing, got close to the low Bollinger Band, didn't really quite touch it, and then just renews another bull market, right? Here, I think we're starting to get a little bit more of Bollinger Band contraction. Do I think Bollinger Band contraction means that this is it and it just goes down from here? No, because over here, contraction went up, made another leg, right? Contraction here, make another leg, right? So I still think that the theory of it potentially going up to 2.618, $228, or 3, which is $355, is still possible. I think that's still a scenario. Now, scenario number 2, this is the top, already made a huge move up here. 2.272 got hit, that's the resistance. And you're going to end up just correcting down here, down, even break down underneath the arc here. And that's it for the bull market, right? That's it, right? That's one theory. Finally, the third theory, which I'm actually maybe more leaning towards because of kind of what I'm seeing here with other stocks here, is instead of looking at the monthly, I'm going to look at the 2-week chart. Instead of looking at the 2-week chart with everything else, I'm going to look at the Bollinger Band here, right? If you look at a Bollinger Band here on the 2-week, you can see how during a bull market, it either rides up along, well, in general, in bull market, it rides up along with the upper Bollinger Band on the way up, expanding it, right? And whenever it gets tired, it comes back and touches the midline over there, right? When it gets tired, it comes back and touches the midline over there, right? And it would have some further bullish continuation, right? And when it gets really completely exhausted, that's when it wants to just kind of come back down to the low Bollinger Band. Here, it came back down, the low Bollinger Band touched it, and then had another, lick down, very, very brutal correction, inverted head and shoulder pattern, pushed up a lot higher, right? Here, same thing, whenever it plummets, whenever it rains, it pours, right? It just have like 6 of these 2-week candles just plummet all the way down here. Eventually able to back test the midline here again, got rejected, and then eventually it would bounce back up above. That's when bull market news, right? But does it mean that we have to go down a lot further? We did hit the low Bollinger Band here so far, right? We did hit the low Bollinger Band here so far. Does it mean that this bull market is over and we're just going to plummeting from down here moving forward? Well, whenever you hit the low Bollinger Band, that could be like halfway through, or maybe like a third of the way through the bear market, right? Maybe Nvidia is entering a bear market. Is that what you were talking about? Not necessarily, because I'm going to show you some previous example here. Now, remember this morphology: Bollinger Band squeeze, price break down the midline here, touch the low Bollinger Band, right? Remember this. So have we seen that? Yes, we have. We've seen that throughout 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. We see this kind of move over and over again. Whatever it just basically got a little bit tired, came back, touched the low Bollinger Band, came back up, touched the low Bollinger Band here, right? It doesn't always have to result in one of these big giant move down. I think we're just kind of accustomed to it here. This is the tariff, tank over here. This over here is in 2022, the taper tantrum. But here, maybe we're just simply kind of cooling down over here, touch the low Bollinger Band, and see whether or not we can reclaim the midline over here and have some further bullish continuation. I don't know, right? It just makes me wonder whether or not we have already had our mini bear market. This might be it, and very similar to what happened over here, right? This might have been it, and then next thing you know, you have another bull market that renews, which would be insane to think about. But I cannot really rule out that possibility either, right? With that said, those are some of my targets I was just kind of talking to you about. Do I believe in Nvidia? I generally don't like late cycle stocks. I generally like, assuming this is early cycle, it's hard to say. Sometimes during early cycle you have huge volatility here, shake people up before for bullish continuation. Assuming this bullish band expansion is real, assuming this is this higher high and higher low, which still is the case as far as I'm concerned, then the Tesla is early bull cycle, right? Whereas Palantir, you can tell, is mid bull cycle because Bollinger Band continues to expand to the upside and continues to expand to the downside, right? So that's kind of what I think about these 3 stocks. None of these are financial advice. I just want to share with you in terms of what I'm thinking with them. I have a position in Palantir. That's my biggest position. I have built a Tesla position, and I've increased my stake here really over the last few weeks. I've really increased my stake here. I still have exposure to Nvidia through index funds, but it's not like a big exposure to me anymore. I actually kind of divested a little bit away from Nvidia and start buying some like small cap stuff. Also end up rotating away a little bit from like Nvidia to Tesla here a little bit as well. So anyway, thanks so much for listening to this video. Have a good one. Bye.